get one of these for home?
Yes.
Sure.
You have any
Your
extras?
parting gift.
This is one of the ones that does this too. Air hockey. That'll be part of the next board.
And just.
If you're there, fine.
Okay, wonderful. If I allow, you can block it. Be all set.
All right, thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
I did that.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, All right, 1C is the consent agenda. Recommended action is approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda. They include 5A, the meeting minutes, 7A, external audit report approval, 7B, donation acceptance, 7C, donation acceptance, 7D, certification of lead evaluators, 7E, resolution for the disposal of personal property, and finally 7G, special education packet. They have a motion to accept this consent agenda.
So move.
So moved.
Martha seconded. Everybody else set with the consent agenda?
The vote?
Or we need to refresh? No, I won't. Six, yes.
2, 4, 5. 5.
5 yes. 0 no, no abstentions, so the motion passes. Next up is the safety plan hearing, the emergency response plan hearing. How this will go is the agenda is as follows. There'll be an introduction and the overview plan. There is a section for guest comments. However, we don't have any guests, at least as of right now. And then the board comments, and then we'll adjourn the hearing and we'll move forward. Is this, which one of you take on this?
Dina has spearheaded this effort for us,
Okay.
so we're gonna let
I
him.
had to pull it off the document. I'm like, I
Okay.
don't have it in front of me.
So really for this, the district safety plan, there were very minor changes this year as opposed to last year. The state wasn't requiring anything structurally different. The changes that that really just occurred are personnel, staffing, so changing names, things like that, phone numbers. Otherwise, the plan in itself is the same as what it was last year. It gives a nice little overview as to this we do in the event of an emergency, whether that's a hazard response or lockdown and stuff like that. But you know what this is it's an overview of the building level plans. So basically, it's kind of a summary of what would happen in events in one of the buildings, but not to the degree of specificity, so that the public knows all the details about what would happen in case of an emergency in the middle high school. Those plans are purposely kept against closed doors. This is a plan that we put together for the district. So, back to no real changes other than staffing changes occurred in this plan. State's approving the Ambrose, he had an opportunity to review it, was at our last meeting, and he said as such that he's not seeing anything different coming down from Albany, what we need to do. So, state police did also review the plan.
The guest comments via email. Okay. Any comments from the board?
Well, that's Karen. Fold it up, you know, continue this. She puts little tabs on it and pages, so when we go over it, it's already highlighted. That's what changes were there.
I'm not hearing any additional comments. I will adjourn the hearing. Next up on the agenda is for good of the cause. I do have one email here that I should read. Is this Miller or Whitecoff? Last name. It's
I
signed-
believe
it's
she
signed
goes
Miller,
by
so-
Miller.
Okay. So it says, good afternoon. I'm sending this email as a concerned parent of a high school student in Lake Placid. My son has encountered numerous issues with the teachers and staff at the high school over the use of the bathroom. One such incident left him suspended from school for 3 days. Granted, he is a teenager and reacted to this denial to use the bathroom in a rude manner, and therefore his own actions did get him suspended. However, the situation should never have happened at all. The teacher refused to allow my son to use the bathroom twice and refused to allow him to go to the school nurse once, all within a 2-week period. This, however, is not the first bathroom incident, nor was it the last. Again today, he faces ISS because he was sent to the principal's office for using the bathroom, and again, responded to the teacher in a rude manner. Can you put yourselves in the place and imagine the frustration? And then remember, he's a teenage boy that is not fully in control of his emotions. Teachers getting upset about a student using the bathroom seems to be a very common theme among your staff. Even Mr. Seymour said in our last meeting, I wouldn't want to work somewhere that they don't let you use the bathroom. If he agrees that this treatment is inhumane and unacceptable for himself, then why would it be all right for the teachers to treat our children that way? I am bringing this issue to the school board because it baffles me. I believe any person in their right mind would be frustrated by the constant harassment for using the bathroom. As a resolution, I believe that some training is required for the whole of the middle high school. The teachers should not be allowed to refuse the right to a bathroom. There are laws protecting children's rights under the UN Convention on the Rights of Children and general human rights laws. Thank you for your time, Morgan Miller. Are there any additional emails or
No.
letters, phone calls? That will move on. Just if Ms. Miller is watching, we will take this matter up and we'll discuss it and we'll address it at the level of which it needs to be addressed. So thank you. Reports to the board. We have a guest with us. Our external auditor, Tom Telling, is with us this evening. Always nice to see Tom, unfortunately, on a screen instead of in person. It's a quicker drive home this way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Prior to tonight's meeting, Tom met with the audit committee, who consists of Dan, Karen Meister, and myself. And we had a nice chat, reviewed the audit. I'm sure you'll find the same as he goes over the audit. So you'll find the audit in the files, and it's the 747 KB file, correct? The larger one. And what we found also is if you're following along when Tom tells you a page number, if you follow along with the page numbers at the bottom, they're about 2 off by the PDF, because it's page 8 and it's actually page 6, because of the fact that there's 2 pages at the beginning that are not. Without further ado, Mr. Talley.
Okay, thank you very much. I totally enjoy meeting with you each year. Seems like it's always cold and dark out, but we we've completed this year is a little bit different than the normal year. There are two reports. Because of the amount of federal money that you expended during the year, being in excess of $750,000, you were required to have a single audit, which is a compliance audit. We looked at a couple of your federal grants, and there are procedures that we had to go through to tie in that you're complying with the allowable costs and what the grant requirements have. So we'll get into that report in just a minute, but I'll start you right off with the financial statement, and I'll do it. Go to page 1, which I think is your page 3. It's going to look like that. This is our report to you, and if you look about a third of the way down, you'll see that management is responsible for preparing the financial statements. The auditors, our responsibility is to express an opinion on these financial statements based on our audit, and we perform procedures to obtain sufficient evidence about the numbers and the disclosures that we can provide a basis for our opinion. And at the very bottom, you see there is the opinion, and here, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the position of the Lake Placid School District as of June 30th, 2021. So that's a good opinion. That's a clean opinion. So let's just dive right into the numbers. I will take you to page 14, which would be your page 16, I believe. You'll see at the top of the page, it says statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. It's essentially a profit and loss or an income statement. This is what happened during the year. If you focus on the very first column, that's the general fund. That's the major fund. If you look about a third of the way down, you see that for the year, you had $19,900,000 of total revenue. Most of it is in real property taxes, and then you get money from the state and some federal money. But if you look about halfway down, you see there are total expenditures that were incurred, $17,398,000. We'll take a look at the actual versus the budget in just a minute, but that's lower than what you had budgeted. And so what happens is you have a excess of revenues over expenditures of $2,500,000, and you transferred out $1,500,000 over to the capital projects fund because
I'm so sorry. I'm lost. I don't see on page 16 what you're talking about. Is it possibly a different page?
Is it?
If you're looking at the bottom of the page, Martha, it's 14.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So I'll call up the actual page number. So you have the document. Okay. So I can just quickly go through that again. Stay with the first column, and you can see about a third of the way down the total revenue of the $19,900,000 for the general fund, and then the expenditures by category. There's a little more detail in the budget to actual, $17,398,000. So you have an excess of revenue over expenditures for the year of $2.5 million. The general fund has been funding some of your construction in progress. So you can see you transferred out $1.5 million that went over to the capital project fund. That's in the middle column. What's left in the general fund is you have an excess of revenues over expenditures of $923,000. So that is very healthy, very good. It increased your general fund balance, if you look at the very bottom line, to 6.393 million. It's going to get a little bit complicated here, but if you go to the far right-hand column, that's the total of all your funds, and that will include the non-major funds in that capital project fund. And you see that the total revenue of the governmental funds was 21,296,000. The total expenditures about halfway down, 27,513,000. So you have an excess of expenditures over revenue of 6 million. So what happened there is that if you look under the capital project fund, that's the third column, about halfway down, a little over or a little under, you'll see 8,695,000 of capital projects that you it's construction in progress for the year. So under fund accounting, it's just the way fund accounting is that you expense, even though it's construction in progress, things like roofs and facilities that are being built, you expense it for fund accounting purposes. So it's a timing difference sort of a thing. You're expensing 808,695,000 of that construction. So that's why you have that negative number. Let me move you to another page. Page 12 per the report, which would be page 14 under the PDF copy. The heading will be balance sheet, governmental funds. We're still in fund accounting here. Do the same thing. I would stay in the first column under the general fund. You see that the total assets, about a third of the way down, are 7.8 million, 7,877,000. Majority of that is in cash. You do have due from other funds. Money's been lent out of the general fund to other funds of 1,159,000, and then the state and the federal government owed the district 600,000 as of that moment. The total liability is about halfway down, 1.4 million, 1.483. So if you look at the second to the bottom line, you have a general fund balance of 6.393 million. So that's the excess of your total assets over your liabilities. So that's healthy. A lot of it has been restricted for different purposes. The third line from the bottom is the total amount of unrestricted. It's a little over 3 million. So that's money that is, unrestricted to the district. And that will pop up again in a minute. If you do the same thing, it's a little bit confusing, but if you go all the way over to the far right-hand column under the total governmental funds, you see there's 11 million. That includes all your funds, non-major and capital project of assets. You have total liabilities of 19,730,000. So what happened there is if you go to the capital project fund again, the middle column, you'll see that there's a bond anticipation note of 17,106,000. So usually bonds or long-term debt are not included as liabilities, but bands and tax anticipation notes are considered kind of the equivalent of like a payable. They're a short-term debt. So for fund accounting, you put it on the books. So what you have here is 17 million of a bond anticipation note, and you don't have any offsetting assets, the construction in progress that you've incurred over the last couple of years. So you're kind of not comparing apples to apples, but it's how you account for it for fund accounting. So so you're showing the debt, but you're not showing your what you use the money for as an asset. Let me take you to page 10 for financial statement purposes. It'd be page 12, obviously, for PDF. This is the same balance sheet, but if you go like about a quarter of the way down, you see a large number, the 28,400,000. That's your capital assets, and that is a footnote on it that will give the detail. That's capital assets acquired at cost, less what they've been depreciated over the years. And in there is the construction in progress. And then if you look about halfway down, you see there is the bond anticipation note, the 17 million shows up here. So this is a little more comparative, except for one number, about a little over halfway down, well, a couple of numbers in here, but you see a $62,346,000 liability. That is the other post-employment benefits, and that is the commitment, the pledge that the district has made for your employees for healthcare after retirement. So that number, if you look at the second line from the bottom, that number makes the net position a large negative number, a $45 million deficit, if you have, so to say. If you take out the post-employment benefit, but it is a real liability, you would then have a positive net position because of the capital assets exceeding the debt. So that's kind of confusing. Let me take you to what comprises that other post-employment benefit number. That's on page 43. It's footnote number 12. If you look about halfway down, you see the 62 million. It was 52 million as of the beginning of the year. Well, it was 52 million as of July 1st, 2019. That was when the actuaries did the valuation. The 62 million is actually a year behind. But you see, they had changes in assumptions in that little table of 10 million. They increased your liability because they changed the assumption for the discount rate. That's the next line down. And it went from 3.5% to 2.21%. If you look at the next table down, if you change the variables, you can see there's the 62 million right in the middle. If you were to increase it 1%, the liability would only be 52 million. And if you were to decrease it 1%, it would go up to 74 million. So that it's just the variables that the actuaries use, it's their assumptions. And you can see some of them, they're over on page 42, right at the bottom of that, towards the bottom of that page. Inflation, 2.4%, salary increases, what they're projecting, 3.25, discount rate, 2.21, healthcare trend costs of 7.5. These numbers are probably going to change all over the place next year, but that's how they calculated it. I will take you to page 46, another important page to kind of get your arms around a little bit. This is the general fund's budget versus the actual results of the general fund versus your budget. And it's those two middle columns. The middle column is the actual results of the general fund. The column just to the left of it is your final budget. And then the column to the far right is the variance between what actually occurred and what you had budgeted. Go almost halfway down, stay with the middle column, you see your actual revenues were 19,900,000 for the general fund, and you had budgeted 20 million, so that's fairly close. The variance was 360,000 less than came in than what you had budgeted. If you go to the second to the bottom line, those are your expenditures, and you can see what actually occurred was 18,977,000 of expenditures, and you'd budgeted 20. So there's $1.2 million less of expenditures than what you had budgeted. And there's some of the detail of general support, transportation, employee benefits, and that type of it. So this is a good report to look at, and particularly for future budgeting purposes too. I want to run you through a couple more things, but I don't want to take up the whole meeting. But if you go to page 50, if you go halfway down, this is you see your 21-22 general fund budget of 20,731,000. The state of New York, there's a real property tax law that says that the maximum allowed of unassigned fund balance, it's going to be tough for you to remember, but that was 3.2 million from before. That is what your unassigned fund balance was. That 4% is what the state of New York allows, and so that's the 829,000. Your actual unassigned fund balance is 3,292,000. So that is in excess of the 4% of this law. It's 15.9% of next year's budget. Everybody has this. Every school district we do has this. Let me take you to the other report, the single audit report, because this is where the issue comes up and where it's sent into the state. I'm going to digress just a bit, but if you go to page 1 of the single audit report, it's just a lot of text. If you go to the second to the bottom paragraph, the very last sentence in that paragraph, it's during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. We do say that, however, material weaknesses may exist and that we didn't identify them. So that's good. I mean, we don't have any internal control material weaknesses. But if you go to that bottom paragraph, the other matters, the compliance and other matters, you see the very last sentence there is that the results of our test disclosed an instance of noncompliance or other matters that are required to be reported under governmental auditing standards. And it's item number 2021-001. And that is over on page 7. This is where that gets reported. At the very bottom of page 7. You'll see excess unassigned fund balance in the bold heading, that the district's unassigned fund balance was 15.9% of next year's general fund, according to New York State real estate tax law. It should not exceed 4%. The potential effect is that the New York State could withhold state aid until the unassigned fund balance is within 4% of next year's budget. And we recommend that the district keep this in mind. On the next page is the district's response to it. So that the potential effect is what New York State could do, everybody has an excess of fund balance. So you need to be aware of it for sure. The other interesting thing in this report is on page 5. That's all your sources of federal funds. You can see a little over halfway down that you got about $105,000 for money from the CARES Act. And I see Dana's over there. I think there's quite a bit more that is coming in this year since that year. And so we, because your federal expenditures are exceeded $750,000, we needed to do some compliance work. We looked at the special ed expenditures, special ed cluster, that's IDEA, and the CARES Act. We looked at those to see that the money was in compliance with those grants, the costs were allowable. And so I think I've gone on and on and on. I'll back off now and just see if there's questions. Threw a lot of numbers at you.
I have no questions, just thanks. And thanks to
Sorry.
Can you say that again, Martha?
I have no questions, just thanks. And thanks to Dana for your great work managing so much money.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're a very fine district. And we, our firm, I think Samantha and Kyle came out. So we're there. We have 5 professional staff here. We just specialize in auditing. We don't do any tax work. And with the, we do a number of school districts. What's happened now with the federal government having, given out so much in federal funding that the demand for auditors, there are school districts like yours who haven't had a single audit before who now do, or there are not-for-profits who maybe never even had an audit, but now they have to have an audit and a single audit because of the money that's going out. So where things change, everybody in my group are probably in their 30s. It's a good group, but so we just have focused completely on audit work, and so just specialize doing a lot of governmental work. And as you can see from these reports, that they're so complicated now that there's a need too. So anyways, thank you for having us.
Just a point that Karen Meister made at the conclusion of our meeting. She made a great point. She said that the numbers are what they are. You can dig into these, you can look at them, but they are what they are. It's what the auditor's opinion and what their findings are that really matter. And we had a clean audit, so we thank you very much and your associates for that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, everybody, have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. See you next time, Tom.
Okay, goodbye. I'm not going away. I'm still here.
What a character.
He's so funny.
He is. Oh, gosh. Okay. So you won't be seeing this again. I believe it's a consented item.
No.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
Okay.
I couldn't.
Okay, we will be voting on this later.
No, we'll vote on
No.
it next time, next week.
What are we,
For the safety plan.
safety plan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
So confused.
Me too.
Budget report, Dana. Budget performance.
Much smaller numbers.
I know.
Not as large in terms of what Tom just went over. But if you look at it, really, the things you kind of focus on is, yes, it gives us the month of October in comparison from this past October to last year. revenue's up a little bit, so it's favorable. Expenditures are up by $126,000, which is unfavorable. But when you look at it, it's really about the year to dates, the bottom, the 2/3 of the reports, where the year to date revenue is slightly off by about $120,000. We've talked about that. That's really about when money comes in and how that compares to previous years. Our expenditures are we're looking at it to 21.5% so far versus 23.7%. So we're trending a little down, a little downward from last year. But again, this is comparison. When I look at the real data, like today, we're actually above our expenditures from last year, and that's as of today. So it's really all about, and I've said it multiple times, it's all about the timing in terms of when things get put in. But when you look at it, we're still projecting a surplus at this point in time. We're only a couple months in now to the school year. So one of the things that we're going to see is, for the most part, we're having basically a normal start to the year with field trips, with sports runs, things like that. We're seeing things normal in comparison to 2 years ago as opposed to last year. So if that continues, we're going to see a different trend when we're looking at current year versus last year because of that. Just like we saw that with the end of 2019 with the start of COVID. So we're really just looking at the year-to-year trend, but you can go back 2 years to a normal cycle. And we're trending. We're trending where we normally would in a normal year in terms of it, in terms of our expenditures and our revenue. So budget thus far is on track as of October 31st.
Question? Thank you, Dana. Commissioner's report.
There's a report. As you can see, I always like to focus on what do we have the money in the sweep, the money that we have flowing, and you can see that that is $11 million in that sweep. A little over $2 million is still attributed to the capital project fund, and the rest of it is in our general fund. The real number as of today is about 16 million. Again, the capital project number hasn't changed much, but even since this, Betsy did the reconciliation for this, more money has been brought in terms of taxes and things like that. So we still have about $4.5 million in operating funds, $11 million in a sweep, and that's where we generate some of our interest, albeit a little less with what we're going to gain because of the rates out there than we saw a year or so ago when we had all of our band money in our account and the rates were much higher, and we benefited from it. But all said and done, I mean, if you look at it, again, things are going well. Probably the first month in many months that we have very little in outstanding checks, like $48,000. I think the last 3 or 4 months we were in the couple $100,000. So that's a good thing. That's people are cashing the checks they get from us. But reality comes and here's a great anecdote as to why some of these things happen. We had a vendor that we sent a check out to in South Carolina, and a vendor that did our chemical disposal. That's the end of June. It took a month for them to get their check, put it in the mail, and he kept emailing me saying, "Oh, where is it? Where is it?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, we sent it on this date and this and that." And sure enough, it came in like the next week. So some of these cases, this is all about how long it takes to get to that year in terms of paying it. But things are looking pretty healthy, and I think Tom even shared that in terms of where we are financially speaking. We're in a good spot.
Thank you. Any questions for Dana? Yes.
So the budget performance report comes out of forecast 5 and the treasurer's report is bespoke. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So forecast 5, yes, it's a software I use. So that's how I do my budgeting and stuff like that. They generate it. In fact, they're the ones that also help with we have 2 state reports that we have to generate. It's an ESSA report is one, which is due the end of December, and then transparency report. So they help with that. It makes it much easier. They build this, 10, 12 tab spreadsheet based on the information I give. And they help with the process so that when I sit down and input it into the states, it makes the process that much easier. And then in terms of reports, Betsy does the reconciliation each month. And that's her own format in terms of that spreadsheet.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, moving on to the policy committee report, policy first reads. There are 8 policies for first read. You also have the attachment of the policy committee meeting minutes. Anyone on the committee like to make any comments on the policies?
Sure. So we met on the 21st, and generally, most of the policies on here reflect some changes in language. There's a few that are unique to situations that have evolved in the law. So policy 1530, we recommended adopting additional language to reflect the ongoing and evolving cannabis situation in New York State, to have that incorporated into our smoking and vaping policy. 4851, we did not have a live animals in school policy. We did have one pertaining to instructional usage of animals for therapy animals, but we didn't have one designed specifically for those students who have a diagnosed medical condition necessitating. So that policy was effective in that regard. And generally, the additional policies just reflect kind of minor changes in the language. Karen, anything of note I'm missing here?
I think the only thing that they did was they took and moved child abuse out of one policy and put it in 5460. So they just moved it from one policy to another.
Any other questions or comments on the policies? Reminder, this is first read. We'll get a second read and vote next time. Special thanks to not only board members, but staff and our volunteers from the community for all their hard work. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
All right, so lots of wonderful things going on and being planned as we enter into the holiday season. One of the initiatives that we've been working on that we're excited to make progress on is a redesign of our school website. So if you were to go on your phone and type in lpcsd.org, inevitably, if you were looking for information, you would have to pinch the screen and find your way to the eyeglass and then type in something. Suffice to say, we live in a phone culture. That's how most people access our website, and our website is not, it doesn't comport with that. It's still a web-based platform that doesn't align with cell phone usage. So we've been working to redesign our website. We're hoping to have a launch on January 4th, coinciding with the return to school after the holiday break. And the new app and website are going to be pretty slick. So first and foremost, we'll be able to simultaneously update all of our social media platforms and website at the same time in a single movement. This can be done in-house. There's not a heavy lift technologically to make those happen. But from the parent perspective, what's exciting is when they type in LPCSD or they go to the app, which we will have an app on the App Store, we'll be able to download for free and access. On a daily basis, they just click on the app and you can look at menus that the kids will be eating for that day, sports schedules, contacts for teachers, busing, just the things that parents and students would routinely be looking for instead of the plethora of information in our current form, which will still be available, but it won't be the forward-facing website for our district. So that's going to be very good. And we also, as the board knows, had a new IT specialist joining the district, Tim Baker, who has started here since our last board meeting. And Tim, among other things, has an aptitude to collect high-quality drone footage. And so he will be and has been taking high-quality drone footage of our exterior, and that will be that video will be incorporated into the cover page of our new website. So already utilizing the talented people that we continue to have on board. A big congratulations to Tammy Casey and Teresa Lindsay. They in the late summer applied for a LEAF grant, and it was just recently announced that their proposal for a new cafeteria layout was awarded. The school will be receiving $50,000 for this. So tremendous work on the part of Ms. Casey and Ms. Lindsay, and looking forward to see how the new layout cafeteria goes. At the elementary school, we had our new RTI math provider, Amanda Blacksmith, start in her position. She shadowed the former elementary school math RTI provider, John Burdick, who has since gone up to the middle high school during her first week. And they had a clean handoff, and there's a lot of excitement about the additional support for math at a half-time basis in middle high school and a full-time basis at the elementary school. So good things happening there. Veterans Day took place since our last meeting. Elementary students drafted letters and cards of thanks and sent them to veterans across the district. We appreciate that. The fifth grade traveled to Grant's Cottage, the New York State Museum in Albany, and to a restaurant with great success. Students had a wonderful experience. They arrived home safely, with bellies full and smiles on their faces. Tomorrow is Bomber Day at the elementary school. And among other things, students will be paired with older elementary school students paired with younger elementary school students on a nature scavenger hunt. They will collect various items and then work together to build an artistic collage that will dry for a considerable amount of time. So it's set, and then I'm not entirely sure what they're doing with it, but I'm confident it's going to look good. So happy Bomber Day to our elementary school students tomorrow. The district is going to be supplying food gift cards for families in need through the backpack program, so that they can purchase Thanksgiving dinners for their families. In keeping with our theme of empowerment this year, rather than supplying meals, the backpack program is working so that families can have access to purchase what they wish and to create those Thanksgiving meals and experiences together. So we commend them for their efforts. We're currently working to secure skating passes for our students for access on the Oval whenever the Oval is completed. And as we look towards Christmas, there are lots of great things going on as well. Cora Clark is continuing to lead the annual Community Christmas Fund, which in the past has supplied new toys and outdoor clothing to an average of nearly 200 families during the holiday season. So we commend Cora for her good work and Patty Mayberry for her assistance in that as well. On the instructional side of the house, I always like to try and showcase a few teachers that are really showcasing their abilities. So Mr. LaValle has been working on a 3D printing design unit with the students. And he also has been reclaiming old doors in our facility and chopping them up with his students and turning them into chairs. So he recently provided one of these chairs to Mrs. Casey. The students had created from her door when she was a math teacher here. So she has that now in her office. And moving on, Casey Kyler has been teaching her students CPR lessons. And Mrs. Casey was just remarking on the positive environment in that classroom and how the students are engaged and there's a sensible vibe, positive vibe. There's music playing in the background and students are they're not in a fixed place. They're really active, which I commend Mrs. Kyler for. Moving on to athletics, our winter sports season started on the 15th, yesterday. And the fall sports season is over with just one exception. We have two of our cross-country athletes who have actually qualified to run in the Federation races this Saturday, Wappinger Falls. These races are basically the elite of the athletes in cross-country around the state. Our girls soccer team, as you may recall, won their first round game in the postseason, but lost in the semis to the eventual state champions from Ausable. So we commend the girls and also congratulate our neighbors Ausable for a well-had season. And additional highlights from the fall season, just to take a moment to reflect on. Many of us followed the boys soccer prevails with bated breath. They won sectionals, but ultimately lost in double overtime, Madrid Waddington in the regionals. So we commend the boys soccer team. The volleyball team lost in the sectional finals to Northern Adirondack after a very good season. We had the girls cross country team win the league championship with the best record in the entirety of the CVAC. They won the CVAC championship meet, sectionals, and finished fourth in the state. The tournament last Saturday ultimately also led to Samantha D'Amico, who was undefeated in the CVAC and was placing fifth at the state tournament. Boys cross country, we won sectionals, finished in ninth place in state. Andrew Scanio was first in sectionals for Class D and eighth at state. Both Andrew and Samantha will be moving on to federations. We commend them both, and Coach Mel Frazier for her leadership. And just as a final note, wouldn't be an appropriate board report without discussing our old pal COVID. I'm proud to say that we have no known COVID transmission that impacted our athletes from any practices or events in our fall season. So to have that level of accomplishment and to do so safely is a testament to our students and coaches. And that is our report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any questions? Information for the board. There are two items, the quarterly audit report and the extracurricular activity report. Next up is linking goals with agenda items. Pass that to Karen for me. My homework.
Like it.
Any items?
External audit under finance. Possibly the strategic plan discussion for goal 3.
And then technology, just the fact of this meeting and the way it's working.
I put the community goal with new website, community communications. As a last minute entry. If you have anything else, please let Karen know. Otherwise, we'll turn our attention to the discussion phase. Leadership succession planning. This is looking at the future of the Board of Education. It's been suggested that we look at some sort of planning process with regards to the board president, vice president. Also included in this discussion should be a plan or activities to pursue the recruitment of new board of education members. So Martha, do you want to lead this discussion?
Sure. Thank you.
You said no, I didn't know what to do.
Spoke was going to be the president. That's
You
Sorry.
warned me. So I'm very familiar with the way organizations work and nonprofits particularly. And when you have a super powerful board president, as we have, someone with vision and strength and administrative ability who works well with others, but that person is going to be cycling off, that's a very big deal. And so I think we should spend some time tonight and other nights talking about how to fill the role of president of this board. And no one can replace Rick, just as no one could replace Mary Dietrich. But a new person will step up and fill those shoes in a different way. I feel that we should not wait until the last minute and let it just kind of let the chips fall as they may. I think we should consider it and be planful and mindful about this. I would also like to say that I am absolutely not the right person for this job, and I have no ambitions for it. I know that Dan Marvin probably doesn't have time and bandwidth to take it on himself, even though he's the vice president of the board. Is that correct, Dan?
That's correct, but this isn't a typical board. I mean, you're not elected in and then move up through chairs. You're selected here for vice president and president by members of this board. And when we have the election in May, we may have 2 new board members that, want to be president and vice president. So to have this, yes, we need to talk about it, but I don't know if we can come up with the person that's going to fill Rick's shoes until, after the election or till the reorganizational meeting.
I see your point.
I was going to caution on being too far ahead, and actually you're making your nomination and you're elected all in one, far before the reorganizational meeting. But I think it's something, it's an awareness that we all need to have.
Mhm.
So we all need to have awareness that we need to have somebody. There needs to be somebody prepared, and I'm not leaving the planet unless somebody else has a plan for me that I'm not aware of. But I would certainly be happy to work with whomever. It's not a unwritten or written rule that the vice president moves up. It's the easiest path of least resistance because of the sitting in on the agenda setting meetings and things like that. And that's the type of thing I think, Martha, you're sort of aiming at is, you sat in on some agenda setting meetings and you gained some knowledge as to what goes on behind closed doors, so to speak. They really aren't closed, but just in a meeting. So I would urge anyone who is interested in moving up and taking over vice presidency or presidency to, if they can, tune into the agenda setting meetings. They are virtual. They're they're easy to follow. There a lot of information flows back and forth in those meetings. So there is.
Don't sell yourself
Yes.
short.
So obviously we can't turn that into a public meeting. So we have to be careful on a quorum, but certainly invite on a rotational basis anyone who would like to attend. So I don't know if that gets out the information that you need, Martha, or what you're thinking, not you need. But I appreciate you bringing this forth. We all sit around waiting for the reorganizational meeting to see who's going to be elected, and it's taken on so many different appearances since I've been on the board. Some people solicited the presidency and the vice presidencies. Others were, everybody else stepped backwards and I was not paying attention. So it takes on different shapes and sizes, so to speak. But any other conversation, input? Joan, do you have anything?
Sorry, I have 2 computers going. I didn't know which one unmuted myself. No, but I agree with what Dan said, that we do have to look forward, but we're not going to know who the board's going to be to really determine who sits on those key spots. What we need to do is find some people that are interested in the board who have time also. I mean, I know that Dan's busy. I'm running a business. I mean, we all are really busy outside of school board. So, you know, just taking on another thing, it's hard.
I'd like us to be proactive about encouraging community members to think about joining the board. Maybe do a thoughtful and slow information campaign so that when it comes time, there's a number of candidates and we can have a robust competition for the right board member.
I agree. I'd like to see
So
that.
in the past, Mary Dietrich and that group of people went to other meetings, like the town board or whatever, and they brought like pamphlets of wanting to run for school board and just information, you know, what our committees were made of. And I'll be honest, that did not get anybody interested to run.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, I don't know the answers to do that.
Their conscription model we can use.
A what?
Conscription.
You know, I was sort of excited when Tim announced the overwhelming interest in the dress code. I'm not sure how that came, if that amounted to anything.
We have a second meeting this evening, and they've been great dialogue. We've had an average of about 14 attendees for both meetings. I have a list of about 30 parents who expressed a desire to participate generally. So, and one of the things I had spoken briefly about, Rick, was just we're looking at putting together a postcard to send all residents to encourage substitute teachers, but we were toying with the notion of how can I get involved with LPCSD, have substitute teaching, parent organization, and opportunities to run for the board, and then try and align that information with the content on our website, just as another way to.
What I found when I was putting together the board orientation packet is the ISBA information is pretty intimidating. It talks about, you know, the hours of which you'll be prepping for your board meetings and the commitment that you must make, and that's great if you're in the, you know, the big five, but you know, us here in Lake Placid, it's not hours of preparation. I won't speak for Dana and Tim and Karen, but it's, you know, I'm a good 90 minutes, but I'm sure the board members, it's less than that. It's what you want to put into it, basically, the understanding of it. So I think that needs to be reflected in some sort of documentation, or rather than sending out the one from NISBA, which is like, good gosh, I'm going to be eating, drinking, and sleeping with the board for the next. That's just not so.
Yeah, that binder plus the law book is enough to make you think, I've made a huge mistake.
That's important feedback. That's yeah.
Maybe put a flower on the cover, and just like kind of soften it a
It's
little.
always the gavel.
Yeah.
I've noticed that Karen doesn't unwrap them, so you have the option.
Yeah.
They lose their value.
Book of the dead, you know, you just want to leave that to shut.
So I think more along leadership, I think we can work on that level. Do you agree, Martha? Is that on the recruitment process? You know, Mary Dietrich may come out of retirement and, you know, grab the gavel again. Who knows? I've been working on her, but I don't think I'm moving her too far. So we can leave this as an agenda item. I think coming up with, you know, like Tim spoke to me about that, or us, or And I was just, my only comment was, I don't want to water down the message about the substitutes with, with board members, but it is a perfect avenue, and maybe putting a little piece in the newsletters. I know there's a section in there on the board, is there not? Just when the
Yeah.
next board meeting is or whatever. So.
Yeah, as a recurrent with that, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so, maybe in a larger, bolder font, just come join us, something like that.
A
I
letter
think
to
there
the
is,
editor, an article in the paper, things like that.
yeah, let's, I'll work with you, Martha, to put together perhaps a letter to the editor, or I think those are more read than articles. Would you?
Okay.
People tend to go from the obituaries to the letter of the editors to the sports, the police blotter. Right? So,
You mean you don't read the Rotary article I write every month?
yeah. That
Oh, yeah.
Thursdays, right? So I'll put something together for that, and then be thinking about the correct release time on that. That's always important. I don't want to have it included in a bunch of, thank you for the Christmas concert.
Exactly.
Letters to the editor. So
February.
find it a dull time of year that we can promote the board and elicit some conversation, hopefully. So, hey, anything more on leadership?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Strategic plan. There's plenty of information in there for you. Thank you, Martha, again. Whichever. And
So Martha has done a great job locating a few articles that really speaks to the value of, particularly in rural communities, of having a robust strategic plan. Certainly in my preparations coming to the district, having the existing strategic plan was of great value to me. And even now, as you speak of linking goals with agenda items, many of those goals are tied to the existing strategic plan. So there's real relevance and value to that. Dana's also been extremely helpful in soliciting good facilitators for us to consider, as well as Martha. And so what the process that we're looking to endorse is probably within the first week of December to have a rep from each of the unions, Management Confidential, representatives from the administrative team of the board, to review the potential facilitators and see which of those individuals and the materials they provide best aligns with the vision that the board and shareholders feel is what we need at this time, and then to seek out that individual and see if we can start the strategic planning process, hopefully as early as January or February prior to the budget season starting. So just procedurally, that's, if the stars align, that's what we would hope for. So that way we can kind of align goals of the district with those of the board and meet the moment where we're at. Martha, do you have things you'd like to add?
Yes, and I'm sure Dana does too. We've both been researching prospective consultants and firms and such. In the work that I've been doing, a timeline that is compressed and has us completing a plan by February, my gut told me that was too quick, and other consultants have also responded that seems artificially quick. And maybe a timeline with deliverable in a year makes sense. So we could go through an organic and authentic process of visioning and bringing out your vision, Tim, and realigning the board as new members come on. It's an opportunity to take it slow and do it right. And we're also in a place in our community where we have the 23 games coming up, and there are huge disparities of wealth and poverty and all these issues that we can address in the strategic plan. And so I think we should take it slow. That's my bottom line.
That's great. I'm happy with the lower pace as well.
I think Martha brought up a good point in an email, which, the board has a role, but they cannot have a primary role in this process. So the board changing, members should not be a component of where we go with this. Do we need to rush it along? Due to the fact that we'll be voting on this, so it's sort of a conflict of interest if we're the main driving force behind this plan and then we vote on it. So we will be participating in the process, but not the major stakeholders or key stakeholders. So thank you, everyone. Dana, do you have any input?
No, well, tomorrow I'm speaking with a representative from Education Elements. Kind of get a little more. I shared with you basically their presentation and the outline of what they do. Willsboro is currently using them as a local tool. I also spoke to the NISBO one and how to, they do a joint thing, and how he explained it was NISBO works with the board. It's my ideas there, and then how they do the focus groups. They come to the stakeholders, they meet with students, the staff, and things like that. So it's a joint partnership. One, NISBO works at the board level, and then the other group, they work, in the buildings, creating the focus groups, aligning everything and all that, and then they kind of bring it together. Just through that, I've been able to get information from thus far. And then the joint one, it gave me a list of a number of schools in the Albany area that have used them as well. So like a source of reference.
Thank you, everyone, for their time with this. That's great.
One
Any
point,
additional? Sure.
yes. So when prospective consultants say, okay, I'm interested in this, they should contact Karen. Is that correct? No?
Either, Dana, you've been collecting the proposals. Karen, as long as we
Dana?
go to Karen, we're going to process them
Right.
more or less in the same way. So to the
Yeah.
clerk might be.
The information I've gotten, I've shared with, it's in here, the administrators and the administrative team have also been given these so they can look at them as well. They're just kind of like presentations. There's no a formal proposal, quote, or anything like that. Basically, these outlined for the two I got, they outline here's what they do in the process. They do, I think one even included like a timeline, 1 to 2 months for this, 2 to 3 months for that. So, a little overview of the process. One thing I really enjoy, like with the joint one with this, we talked about developing. Once you agree, if you work with them, then they sit down and they develop the scope of work. And basically, this is the driver as to what we want to get from them, what we want them to do for us. And we develop the scope of work, and then it goes from there.
So to answer your question, Martha, LP District Clerk, process it in the same way, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So to Karen would be fine, Martha.
Thank you.
Anything further on the strategic plan discussion? And another ongoing item we'll keep on the agenda. If not, we have the minutes from the November 2nd meeting. That's under consent. Personnel, we have a personnel consent agenda, and that's the recommended action is approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda. 7B, teaching staff probationary change. And 7C, mentor appointments. May I have a motion to accept this personnel consent
Did you
agenda?
also add the additional winter coach and volunteers?
Oh, yes, I will. And we'll add 7D, which is the additional coach and volunteer. Thank you.
I'll
May I
make
have
a motion.
Thank you, Joan. Second. Second, Dan. Any omissions? If not, please vote. We have 5. Scoreboard.
Feel like it?
5 yes, 0 no, the motion passes. Additional action items, A through E are on the consent. Actually, we need to pull out A. Karen, if you would. 8E is that external audit report approval,
Oh,
unless you'd like to approve it tonight.
no, I'll just table it.
Okay. So we'll table 8A, otherwise 8B through E are under consent. 8F is the emergency response plan approval. Recommended action is upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve the attached emergency response plans for the district, elementary school, middle and high school. I have a motion to accept this plan. Daniel, second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Discussion?
Thanks for all your time putting it together.
Thank you.
We've got to get uploaded to the state.
That's right. So it's 5 approved, 0 no, so the emergency response plan is approved. Special education is under consent. Is there any questions regarding the December 7th packet? I believe there's only two IEPs in there. Yes. I have, just to make it public, I have asked Tim to pursue. I noticed that in those, either one or both are preschool IEPs. I'd like to get a number on the number of preschool IEPs that we have. And then the next question would probably be for Sarah is if it's at the UPK program, are we sending speech pathologists, OTs up there? If it's at, I know Children's Corner has their own, and then we have the Head Start program. It'd just be nice to see those numbers and see if we can cut down on mileage of our practitioners. Good to the cause. Have you received anything?
I have not, I checked.
German phase of the meeting. The meetings are listed. We're into December already, folks. December 7th, 21st, January 4th. Old agenda items. I believe those are all have been taken care of. Are there any new agenda items? Okay. Anybody at home? All set?
I'm all set.
Okay, so we'll move to the adjournment phase. Recommended action is motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:53 p.m. We have a motion.
Yeah.
And Martha, thank you. I take it that's going to be a 5-0 vote.
That's part of it. Mark it unanimous.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everyone.